in the Bible, God created man and woman, and that was it.
Yeah.
Well, other than animals, but what I'm saying in the human side, God created man and woman. And when you're born biologically, that's what you are. You can't change that.
Around the world, as promised, a remnant remains, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Welcome to Remnant Podcast.
Okay. All right, man. So we're back again with Logos Life. I think this is going to be episode 5, but we got something different today. Got a special guest.
Yeah, we got a special guest. Any of you that have watched our podcast recognizes Miss Katrina here. The three of us are the co-hosts of Remnant Podcast.
Yes.
Excuse the coughing. Me and Steven will be doing a lot of that.
Yeah, allergy season.
It is allergy season in Alabama, and it is terrible.
Yeah. And we got Katrina in here today because we wanted to get a woman's perspective on some of the things that's going to come up.
Yep.
And not just a woman's perspective, but she was also into sports, and we won't get with any specifics on that, but my wife was a athlete. And she probably don't want me to put the word was. She wants me to say is an athlete, but it was definitely a was.
Genetically speaking, elite power.
Yeah, that's
athlete.
what your genes say.
23andMe said that.
Yeah. I'll never live that down either.
No. All right, so our subject today is going to be a controversial one. It's transgenders in sports. A lot of this is going to be touching on more of college, elite sports, but in these articles you'll see where they're actually trying to change that, where they can't even get that far. They can't even get to the college level. And just recently, well, we'll get into it. So, since the beginning of time, competition sports has been by genders. And it's been by genders for a reason. Males are built differently than females. We're stronger in a lot of aspects. We've got higher endurance. And there's this thing that we have called testosterone, and that helps. They're trying to say it doesn't, but it does. So, I want to start out by saying, in this episode, I am not going to refer to these people as what they want to be referred as. I am going to refer to them as
what they biologically
they're
are.
biologically born.
Right.
Because if you are, just because you're subpar or average in your sport, you should not be able to call yourself a female to advance your in your career or your sport or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it makes me honestly think of you shouldn't be able to be a college age player and be on the junior varsity team either. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't do that. They're not going to let you play on the junior varsity team if you're 19 years old. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And that's a lot of the things they say here. Neil, if you were a player of any sex playing, if you were doping to get your advantage, they are going to strip your title and possibly even remove you from the sport.
Yeah.
So, to me, I don't see a difference in why is one okay and not the other.
Well, the thing is, like, I mean, and I know you got some articles to read there, but what you have to really establish is this: that being a male in a female's competition is actually an advantage to you. Because that's what they're trying to say is, no, we're equal across the board. But equal doesn't mean synonymous. Equal doesn't mean same. Equal, I mean, a pound of lead and a pound of chocolate is both a pound. And so in that sense, they're equal. And they are probably, you could even say, equal in value.
Yeah.
But you can do two totally different things with them. And there's no doubt about it that I don't care how a person identifies. How you identify has absolutely zero bearing on truth.
Zero.
That men are created stronger, faster. That's just all there is to it. It's just foolish.
Yeah, and that's why I said back in the beginning of time, maybe not back that far, but in the days of Romans, they weren't competing men against women. They were competing man against men, or even man against animal in some senses. So it's cheating. In my eyes, it's cheating. Why should you? What gives you the right? Because you'll see when I go through some of these articles that there is, well, Leah Thomas, and I think it was William before he changed what he wanted to be, or tried to change who he was, however you want to say it. Anyways, how can you? He was like at the bottom of the list in the male category of swimming until he got in the women's. Now he's like top 5 in the country.
Mm-hmm. I can't even take this stuff seriously myself, man. I mean, I'll hear the articles out and all that kind of stuff, but to me, there's just a principal issue.
Exactly.
It's just going to be broken in every single article.
And that's what one of the things I was, in the Bible, God created man and woman, and that was it.
Yeah.
Well, other than animals, but what I'm saying in the human side, God created man and woman. And when you're born biologically, that's what you are. You can't change that. You can't change what you are.
No, you can't. You can't change your biology. I mean, you can even take hormone pills and you can have surgery.
Yeah.
But you still have either a X chromosome or a Y chromosome.
Well,
and you can't change that.
They won't change your birth certificate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, this is just ridiculous. What do you think, Katrina? Chime in here. Get a word in.
Where to even start with some of this stuff?
I know it's
it makes me think of, I'm sure you've seen some of the videos where the guy goes around asking people to say, what is a woman?
Yes.
And how very difficult it is for people to stay in line with what they claim to stand on as far as their beliefs and principles. It's very difficult for them to do that and also make sense, you know? And so they struggle with being able to define what is a woman or what is a man. And one thing that I remember pointing out when we talked about this Leah guy is, why did he have to grow his hair out just to compete with the women? Mm-hmm. Because that is an aspect that looks feminine. Long hair is a feminine aspect. Why did he, which I know all swimmers shave their legs, but stuff with like makeup or certain types of clothing, the men who try and identify as women, they don't just wake up and throw on their jeans and, a baseball cap and throw it backwards and keep their hair shaved and say, no, I identify as a woman. They change their appearance because there are things that are womanly and there are things that are feminine. And they even know that with what they do to present themselves as trans, whatever, woman, however you say that. And so even the way they live is contradictory to the things that they'll say. There is such a thing as femininity.
Let me just say, in their defense, they would listen to this and say, no, that's what we'd expect because he's saying he is a woman. That's what they would. He's acting like a woman because he is a woman. That's what they would say.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm pointing out that there are things that are.
There are clear
distinctives
with femininity and masculinity. They're different. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, that's all I'm saying is that, because if you carry out the argument to, how they try and take away from being able to define what a woman is, they would say, no, it's not feminine necessarily to have long hair, or it's not feminine to wear a dress, or it's not feminine to, the jewelry and the makeup and stuff like that. But actually, the proof is in the pudding, even in their own camp, because the people who try to become more a man going to look like a woman, he takes on those attributes and those characteristics. But I know that's kind of beside the point. That's something that I always think of when I see this group of people talking about how there is no feminine thing and there is no masculine thing, and yet the way they live and the way they carry themselves is totally contradictory to that.
I get what you're saying, and that would be like with the gender neutral crowd. But with the transgender crowd, they're still saying, "Oh no, there's men and women, and he's a woman." It's like, no, wait, he's not a woman. Go ahead, Alan.
Well, it's very difficult to take this seriously.
And see, that's the thing, is there's a lot of people arguing against this. I know, we all know this is wrong. There's no doubt about that. But they're saying they're wanting to introduce another category for them. And I think, other than not do it at all, they're arguing, well, that's still not fair. Well, they're saying it's still not fair because now they're going to have to compete against their own sex still.
So wait a minute. So let's see how this is going to go. So are they saying that there will just be a new category of sports for the transgenders? That's both male and female.
That's what is in talks.
Now I got a question. In the transgender sports, is it going to be co-ed, or is it going to be how you identify? You see what I'm saying? Is it going to be Usain Bolt against some woman that identifies as a man?
Yeah,
you know what I'm getting at? Because that won't last. I mean, I hope they'll do that. You know why? Because that'll be an experiment that fails in 3 months.
And, it also, I know that this is a little bit of a reach from this subject, but, there's also people that identify as animals. And so, they have dog competitions. And I just wonder, can I identify as a dog and win the AKC?
You know what's crazy, though? When they hear you say that, they'd be like, oh, well, that's taking it too far.
Yeah,
but it's not
ridiculous.
But wait a minute. How can you, upon what grounds can you tell me I've took that too far? I want to identify this $1 bill as a $100 bill.
Yes.
Boy, I'd be sitting good then.
Right.
When opinion becomes reality, we're all in a mess.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happened. But tell me about this article then.
Okay, so
that's piqued my interest.
I've got 3 or 4 articles on here. So I'm going to start with this one because, and I probably should have started with another one, but we'll just go this way.
Okay.
It says, doctors verify scientific evidence proves trans swimmer Leah Thomas unfair advantage over females.
Yeah.
Now, they're arguing that there's not been any actual studies, like deep studies, experiments yet on this. But they're arguing, oh, well, more than likely it won't come out any different. That's what they're trying to do, is say that. But 2 medical doctors have gone on record confirming that trans swimmer Leah Thomas who previously competed for 3 years as a male at the University of Pennsylvania, gained an unfair advantage when allowed to compete against biological females despite taking testosterone suppressants. So, that's because the testosterone doesn't affect how your body is still built.
Right, that's what I was about to say. The first logical fallacy right there is that what makes a man is testosterone. Wrong. That's just one of the many things that makes a man a man. One of the many things. So you can take a testosterone suppressant all you want to, but that doesn't.
Yeah.
That's only changing a tiny fraction of what you would naturally be. It doesn't change your bone structure. Doesn't change, how your lungs developed up until you was 18 years old. Your lung capacity, your heart strength, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the NCAA, they're treating this testosterone like you would testing for drugs. They've got to test so often, and the testosterone's got to be below this level for this long to be able to compete in the next competition. So if you're missing your suppressants, and your testosterone goes up, you're not allowed to compete. That's what they're getting at.
Man, I don't want to sidetrack you, but that also is it's an undefensible position or an untenable position to hold for the NCAA or whatever. How can you have testosterone guidelines if you don't have genders?
Oh,
you see what I'm saying? Like, how can you say
all of it's contradictory? When I go through all this, it's full of contradictory.
Okay, well, carry on. I don't want to sidetrack you.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So there are social aspects to sport, but physiology and biology undeterminate. Dr. Michael J. Joyner, a physician at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, told the New York Times in a story published in a story he published, testosterone is the 800-pound gorilla.
I just want to say, no, truth is the 800-pound gorilla, and it's a lot bigger than 800 pounds. But testosterone in their world, yes, if you're going to just look at everything as it's a matter of chemicals and all that, I get what he's saying.
Yep.
But really, I just wanted to point out, actually, no, the gorilla in the room is truth, and it's going to rip all of you apart.
Yeah.
By the time it's all said and done.
A lot of this right here is basically what I've already said. So, you cannot compete. The NCAA rules require at least 1 year of testosterone suppressant treatment in order to compete in women's events, which is ridiculous. I don't think it should be happening anyways, and I've already made that clear, but I'm going to say that a lot because it is ridiculous. Thomas, who came out as transgender in 2019, has undergone 2 years of testosterone suppression and began swimming on the women's UPenn team at the start of his senior year. So, a lot of you that are familiar with this, or if you're not, this transgender swimmer has... Where's the numbers at? So he was like 550 something in the men's.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of his teammates have come out anonymously because they don't want to wreck their own future in the sport. Speaking out because they're going to be called transphobic and all that other stuff. So. But they have said that he was not worth a darn as a male swimmer. Mm-hmm. And now he's top 5 in the female category.
What we're looking at here. Well, first, let me ask Katrina something. You don't play sports anymore, but like if you had your daughter in sports and there was a transgender male on a girls' team, would you leave her in sports or would you take her out?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You'd take her out.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say anything? I mean, like, what would you say to the school, or what would you say to the coaches, or what would you say anything at all, or would you just take her out? Or
well, I mean, yeah, if given a platform, there's plenty to say. And what's amazing to me is there are a lot of people that are saying these things, even that aren't Christians or believers, because it's just so obvious. But yes, I mean, there are so many things that come up when you try and put boys and girls on the same team, and I'm talking about even at the junior high level or high school level. I mean, you've got locker room issues. You've got, there are things that brought up in the discussion between girls that, you don't bring up when there's a boy around because girls are going through things at that stage of life, and there are, during practice, if you, like when we would practice, sometimes they would bring in some of the guys on like the lower, you got lower levels, second string, third string, that sort of thing. They would bring in some of the guys off the guys' third string to practice against us for basketball. But even when they would do that, it would be 3 of the guys against us 5, and it was a challenge. I mean, it made us better, and I appreciate that they did that, and it would only happen every once in a while, but I mean, there is literally no way to competitively guard a man as a woman. There's no way to guard him on the court. I mean, I know people are going to say, well, there's a lot of really good basketball players, but if we're going to do apples to apples here, you take any standard college basketball player, woman, and the same age, same college, take a man off that team, she's not going to guard him. It's just not going to happen, competitively, consistently. Now, she'll have a good play here and there, and all that stuff, but goodness gracious, And then you take into other accounts, I mean, the unspoken rules of the game, where, they say basketball is a non-contact sport, but anybody who's ever played basketball knows that's just not true, and so that's what I mean. The unspoken stuff, when you get your aggression, and you really set a pick or you defend somebody and you're pushing on them and stuff. If a man is doing that to his strength, his full capacity, you're going to have women with black eyes and on the ground constantly. I mean, there's just no way. It's just impossible to actually carry out.
To me, that's the issue. Why is transgender such an issue, even for the non-Christian? Mm-hmm. Because it attacks all points of the fundamentals of humanity. It attacks humanity itself. Like, even think about sports. There's an unspoken law in sports that the sport is supposed to be organized according to fairness. That's why we have 2A schools, 3A schools, 4A schools, 5A schools, 6A schools. That's why we have that. That's why we have junior varsity, college. That's why we have age restrictions. And then in boxing, that's why we have featherweight, lightweight. We categorize them by weight because it's not fair to put a 250-pound man in the ring with a 120-pound dude. No. It's not fair. And so fairness, I'll tell you this much. True sport is built on the principle of fairness. If there's no fairness, it's not considered sport anymore. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's not sport anymore. It's like, no, it's just a demolition. It's not even entertaining. It doesn't, sport is supposed to, I love sports. It's supposed to push the man to be the best that he can be within this category. But I'm saying by doing this transgender thing, it's an attack, though, on the full scope of humanity. It's an attack on gender, really. It's an attack on feminism, really. Yep. I mean, really, it is at the end. It's an attack on fairness. It's an attack on truth. It's an attack on the laws of logic. It's an attack on so many different things, and that's why the transgender issue is so controversial, because it hits on so many points that's actually obvious to the thinking human being.
Yeah.
It's just obvious.
I'm going to touch on another aspect. You've played sports. You played sports too, didn't you? At all?
No.
Okay, well, when I played sports, before the game, after the game, you're all in the locker room. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I don't care if that person is claiming that they're a woman. I don't want them in the locker room while my daughter is undressing.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. I said I wasn't allowed to play high school sports, but after I graduated, I did play organized basketball.
Yeah.
For like rec league teams and stuff like that, but I was always into sports, and so it was because of my parents' religion they didn't let me play in high school. But
that's a lot of it. I mean, it's not just it. It covers a broad, like she said, the man, a male in basketball has his body, his strength as the defense to block. Mm-hmm. Then there's the fact of the like I just said, the undressing, and then there's where do they draw the line?
If you accept this transgender stuff, you can't draw a line anymore. You gave up your pencil.
No,
you can't draw. There is no way to draw a line after that. There is no way.
Right.
I honestly would even think the Homo crowd should be against the transgender crowd, because the transgender crowd is even going to undermine this whatever these Homo people think they're standing on some foundation. They're actually going to lose it also to the transgender crowd, because once you accept this transgender stuff, everything is out the window from there on, man. I mean, really, it's you can't. I could go on and on and on. But,
well, we covered it in Romans. It's unnatural, and they will suffer the wrath of God eventually.
Yes.
And another thing that just is, nobody even needs proof that men compete on a different level than women compete. Everybody knows that. It's understood.
Well, yeah, we got clocks. We can clock the mile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fastest mile ever.
Well, that's what that's the next thing I was going to cover right here. He is beating his female contestants by a whole second.
Yeah.
When you're swimming, a whole second is a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're talking, them people are touching the wall like.
Oh, yeah, Olympiads, usually top 8 people are all within like a tenth of a second.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And he's beating his contestants a whole second.
I was just going to say, another way just to show some evidence here is when sports is more about money than anything else, when money is on the line here, and the coaches are only going to take in the top quality and the top, for their best opportunity to win a championship or something, like talking about like NFL or NBA.
When money's
you
on
don't
the line,
see them recruiting women because it's a different level of competition. They're not going to, if you need a really good quarterback, you're not going to be hunting a woman, a female.
Because you don't even care about making those. Like an NFL team will never have a female quarterback to be supportive of the transgender crowd. Nope.
Right.
Because I tell you what they support way more.
The dollar.
The dollar. And the truth is, they're not going to throw away billions or millions of dollars just to be supportive. No, the truth comes out when you get down to brass tacks.
Yes.
The IRS, the division of the government called the IRS, they're not going to sit here and be like, well, if you feel like you only owe $7,000, that's fine. They're not going to do that.
Right.
Well, and I'll tell you what else they're not going to do. Because there may be certain tax breaks for single mothers or something like that. But if you're a dude with 2 kids, you're not going to be like, well, I get the single mother tax break, don't I? Nope. You know what I'm saying?
I know. You cannot carry out this ideology.
If we accept this transgender stuff as true, we've lost all truth. We lost it all. Go ahead, Alan. You was about to say something.
No, I already had mentioned it, but I'm going to read it. Okay, so several of Thomas's teammates have spoke out against the transgender swimmer's participation on the team, but they spoke anonymously for fear of being sidelined by UPenn for being or labeled as transphobic. In their letter to the school, they said they believe their teammate should be sidelined. They also raised the question of fairness and said Thomas was taking competitive opportunities away from them, namely sports in the Ivy League championship meet where schools can only send about half of their roster to compete. So that's taking opportunities, and I have not covered this yet, and it's further down here, but I guess now's a good time to bring it up. High school age, you are out there to compete for a scholarship. That's your ticket to college. That's a lot of
that's
male, female, anything. That is their ticket to college. They work and train every day. They abuse their bodies to get to the point where they're the best so they can get the scholarship. Well, if you are having a transgender in there competing for the same scholarship, and anyone who's competed for a scholarship, no, they're not for everybody. There's very few of them. I mean, when I say few, there is quite a bit, but compared to how many athletes you got competing for the scholarship, there's not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's taking opportunity away from, and swimming may be just the way, or I'm just using swimming as an example because this is what we're talking about at this current time. But maybe they want to be a doctor, and they're going to school to be a doctor, and swimming is what's getting their becoming the best swimmer in high school and being sought after, and you get to pick the school you want to go to. Hey, that school has a great doctor's program, and you take that scholarship. Well, that opportunity's gone if you're allowing transgenders to compete in high school.
Mm-hmm. The thing that keeps coming to my mind, man, is NCAA or whoever it is that's coming up with this stuff. It's like I almost think they're missing the whole point here, because you're right. There is a limitation on how many scholarships are given out and how many people are actually competing for those scholarships and all that kind of stuff. But to me, that's like a distraction from the truth.
Yeah,
it's like no. We're not even going to get caught up. In other words, they're trying to defend eliminating transgender stuff from co-ed sports and creating this whole field for transgender competitors. But they're doing it based on, because of the scholarship stuff. In other words, they're trying to still accept transgender truth. Yeah. And say, okay, well, because they really are transgender, but yet that gives them an advantage here, we need to create this field of them. We need to structure our new scholarship program according to this kind of stuff, and yet keep it fair for the all-girl team, keep it fair for the all-boy team, keep it fair for the transgender team. And what I'm saying is all of that is just a distraction. There's no such thing as transgender.
No. See,
There's boy, there's girl. That's it.
Going through all this, we could have made this probably the shortest episode ever. We don't believe in this, so it doesn't exist. But what I'm saying is, this is an actual. I'm seeing them not just step aside and let it go. There's a lot of people out there fighting this, not in just swimming, in all sports.
But it sounds to me like you're actually saying they're fighting, like the NCAA is kind of fighting to restore right sportsmanship, to keep transgenders out. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the NCAA does not know how to react to this yet. They don't. I don't want to say they don't know how to react. It all comes down to political.
Because they've already accepted too much of it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. All this other stuff is a distraction. You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying, Katrina?
Mm-hmm, very much, yes.
Setting certain rules and all that is like, we're going to accept a certain amount of y'all's truth. We're going to accept a certain amount of this reality of transgender, and so we'll have these rules. I'm saying, no, you're actually, in the end, I think they're messing that up. Mm-hmm. You know?
I'm just glad that I didn't have to deal with none of this when I played sports in high school. Yeah.
Well, I don't think we would have. You know what I'm saying? Our generation that you and I were in high school, that we wouldn't have dealt with it. It was. That's why it wasn't.
No, there was a girl that wanted to be on our football team when I played high school football. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, you know what I would actually be more fine with? Let the girl play as a girl,
right?
But be a girl. I still wouldn't actually let her play football because
football is a very high
I'm saying,
contact
like, if
sport.
there was a girl that's, let's say, there's some girls that's really good at volleyball, really good, and if there's a girl that's like super good at volleyball, and in her school she goes to, she's actually better than half the guys on the team, I wouldn't be against letting her play because she honestly is better. But just play as a girl. Don't come in here and dress up as a dude.
No,
and we're not going to accept this transgender stuff. You see what I'm saying?
Right? No.
Yeah.
I think that makes it very difficult, though. In my mind, I'm imagining to be the guy playing against the girl, even in volleyball. Like, there was that story recently where there was a guy on a high school team, and he spiked the ball. They were having some competition. He spiked the ball, and it hit the girl on the other team and broke her nose, and she fell out on the floor, And so I do think, of course. I mean, I've played pickup ball with guys and girls, all that sort of stuff my whole life. But I just imagine in a actually like a competitive setting where you're trying to win a championship of some sort, I imagine it'd be very difficult to be a guy competing to your maximum against a girl, even in something like volleyball. Because, I mean,
if there's any contact at all, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Like would I
golf,
play a girl in chess and give it everything I got? I would.
Right.
But would I play or golf? I would, yeah.
Right.
But if it's volleyball, would I spike it on a girl as hard as I could? No.
I don't think you would.
No, I know.
And most guys I don't think really would.
I know I wouldn't.
I've played volleyball with you. I know you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I wouldn't. So you're right about that from the other team's perspective.
Right.
All I was really trying to say is it's not an anti-girl thing at all.
Right.
It's not an anti-guy thing at all. It's like just, even if there were some areas, okay, like cricket or, what's the ice thing the Canadians do, the curling or whatever.
Yeah, curling.
If there's a sport that's like a no-contact sport,
right.
I wouldn't have a problem with women who are good.
Yeah, because it's fair to them and
but I'm just saying, just let them do it as women, though. We don't have to. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
But actually, guess what? They do.
I was going to say.
Curling is co-ed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cricket is co-ed. Those sports that don't involve contact like that, they are co-ed, most of them.
There's no risk for anybody.
Because the people that have come up under us, we stand on the shoulders of giants, so to speak. We've got history to stand on. They knew what was right. They accepted absolute truth and morality.
What is that Bible verse? I always think of this Bible verse whenever this issue comes up or things like it. But where professing themselves to be wise, they became fools.
We just covered that
in Romans. Yeah, that's in Romans chapter 1.
Yes, that describes so much of our society today.
Yeah, they became fools for sure. Well, he did so much work to get this set up.
No,
I don't want to mess you up on it for sure. But anyway,
that's why. I want your guys' because I just said to you, hey, how about this be our next topic? And you're like, hey, that's a hot topic right now. Yeah, let's cover this. So I covered it, but I don't ask you guys throughout the week your opinions because that's why I wanted it here. I wanted it at this table.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it at all. And it's just, it's difficult for me personally to talk about one aspect of it in a serious way because it's like I can't even actually, like I can't envision a scenario in which I would ever support transgender stuff in sports ever, no matter what they try and do to suppress the testosterone for at least a year, and we made him do this, and he couldn't wear his Nikes or what. I don't care. Still, I don't care. It's a principle thing you're breaking. You know what I mean?
But we've talked about this. It all has an agenda behind it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it does. I mean. We've already said it. This stuff didn't even exist when we were there, and I think you said earlier today that our stuff's changed in our generation
more than any other generation,
and faster than it did in any other generation.
No doubt about it. I could prove it scientifically. I think I could prove it mathematically. There's no doubt.
I try to forget a lot of my high school years, but when I think back, this stuff. If you dressed like a girl and you were a boy, you got made fun of. Yeah. If you wore tight jeans, you got made fun of.
Oh yeah. And it wasn't just here. It was worldwide.
Yeah.
And now what I'm saying is this wasn't just American culture. Now this transgender stuff is happening worldwide, and I tell you what, you can't show me a transgender movement in all of written human history. You can't show me one. You can show some times where, well, the reason that Bible verse is there, men with men, women with women, working that which is unfit or whatever, and God, for this cause destruction comes. You can show some times in history where men have drifted into that kind of stuff, but you can't ever show me no transgender stuff. It's unprecedented. It's not just that, but I mean, technologically, we're seeing different things. Spiritually, we're seeing different things. We live in the age of relativism. People believing whatever they want to believe, and they say, well, whatever I believe is true. It's my truth, that kind of stuff. That's what we live in. And it leaves the people like us that stand on the Word of God, like, what do I even say to this? Like, how do I even begin to deal with this?
And there's no way that the people who are involved in this stuff, there's no way that they are convinced of themselves that what they stand on is true. I mean, there's no way that a guy that wore a dress today lays down at night when nobody else is around listening and is convinced that he is a woman.
Yeah, and here's what would be an interesting question. Mr. Transgender dude, do you think another boy should be allowed to swim with the girls that's not transgender, but biologically y'all are the same? He would be like, no, that'd be cheating. Well, wait a minute. Just because he don't identify as a girl, if he wants to swim with the girls, just like you swim with the girls, shouldn't he be with that? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
here's the reason I bring that
anything?
Up. Because Romans chapter 2, that's what we was talking about today.
Yep.
Their thoughts accusing or excusing one another, showing the work of the law in their heart. He would be like, no, boys shouldn't be allowed to swim with girls. What?
Wait
a minute.
Yeah. This whole transgender idea started as entertainment. I mean, that's where I'm looking at it started. When you had those cross-dressing shows back in...
Oh, I know. RuPaul.
Yeah, okay. I was like, I knew that there was a name, but I never followed that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I didn't either. I've never watched a single episode of any of that. I just remember that was
I
her
would
name.
call myself saved when I was still living in the world. That stuff doesn't interest me. It doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. We talked about that today, too. In Romans, you know in your heart when something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that was. I have no interest in watching guys dressed in dresses jump around on a stage.
Yeah,
no interest.
It's an abomination to man. It really is. Even in the eyes of man, I'm saying like it.
Yeah,
it really does. It's not just because of how I was raised, man. It's not. You can go anywhere in the world nearly, and they're all gonna say, no, men acting like women, dressing like women, it's disgusting to their soul. It's just the truth.
Right.
And the people that don't see it, well, they don't see it because they're reprobate, they're blinded or whatever, but go ahead.
But, so Thomas, that's what I'm going to call him from now on. Thomas went on ABC News, probably one of the morning shows, and he had a response to the letter that his teammates had sent, and he said, you can't go halfway and be like, I support trans women and trans people, but only to a certain point, Thomas said, where if you support trans women as women, they're met all the NCAA requirements, then I don't know if you can really say something like that. Well, he's talking about, because these people that are coming out and talking about this, I don't necessarily think that they support this, and they're not supporting him as a woman. But these organizations like the NCAA and the Olympic Committee and all that, they've said they're recognizing it, and now they have to let them participate in that.
What do you say about that, Katrina? Anything before I say something?
Well, what it makes me think of is I absolutely hate when people accuse you of being phobic when you are against something's based on principle. Like, I am not transphobic. Phobic means, like, afraid.
Yeah.
Fearful of. I'm not afraid of or fearful of transgender people. I am aware of what their impact on society is, and I'm aware of what they are doing to our children, and I'm aware of the direction that the world is going, and I'm against it. But I'm not afraid of them, and I'm not homophobic because I am opposed to homosexuality. I hate how they attach phobic and phobia to it just when you are against something, the principle of it, you know. You can...
Yeah, it's really that what you're talking about is what's called a straw man argument. They tear up this, they build up this thing that they're accusing you that you're not actually even doing, and then they tear it down and say, see, we beat you. And it's like, no, wait, I'm not a phobic.
Right.
So you can tear down this whole idea of phobia and accuse me and all that, but that's not, you're not even dealing with truth there either.
Right.
However, I want to back up. What he's saying, I agree with him. Tommy boy over there?
Yeah, I
Tommy
mean,
boy?
that's what I was going to say. I hate to say that I agree with him.
He's right, though.
But he let it get, I mean, they let it get to that point, and they say,
That's right.
yeah, we accept what you're doing.
He is
but
saying what I said in the beginning.
Yep.
If you're going to take it, if you're going to accept any of it at all, now you have no justified reason. I said if you accept any transgender stuff at all, throw your pencil away, because now you have no lines.
That's
That's
true.
what he's saying.
Yep.
If you're going to accept it a little bit, you got to accept it all the way.
Right.
Yep.
That's what he's saying. And he's
Exactly.
right.
Yep.
You either don't accept it at all, or you accept all of it.
Then he says trans women are not a threat to women's sports. Yes, they are.
The fact that you have to
absolutely.
put the word trans in front of it tells you they are. If he could just say women are not a danger to women's sports, then he'd be right. But he's saying
Right.
trans women, which means not women.
Exactly.
You
But-
know what I'm saying?
I mean, he's obviously a threat. Now, there's others, not just swimming. There's cycling. They actually had 2 professional women cyclists quit their careers in that sport because they let 2 trans men race in their races, and she came in between them. She was flanked by both of them. She was like second. One was first, one was third. And I'm done. This is ridiculous. If they're going to let this go on.
Yeah,
I mean-
we can begin to bring this to a close, but I want to ask a question. The transgender people probably make up less than half of 1% of the population. Probably less than a tenth
Yep.
of 1%. Why is the country afraid of them? Why is it that the superintendent at the college is afraid to stand up to a transgender kid and say, no, we don't have that junk here? Why?
Politics, man.
That's right. That's
It
what I
all
was gonna
comes
say.
down to politics.
That's what I was about to say. The Bible says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness and powers, principalities, the rulers of the darkness of this world, and all that kind of stuff. If the strength of the transgender movement don't jump out to you like, what's really happening here? And if you don't identify that, oh, there's a strength behind their movement, then that's not from their people. It's coming from somewhere else. Where's it coming from? The law is behind them.
Yep.
The politics are behind them. Even though it's like it's illogical for a politician almost, because politics typically wants to appeal to the biggest possible crowd. But in this case, they're appealing to the smallest possible crowd, and they're doing it vehemently. They're making it a hate crime for what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And so all I'm saying is, in my opinion, a blind person can see that there's a spiritual thing behind the transgender deal. A blind person could figure that out, because there's such a tiny minority, and even the atheists disagree with them.
The crowd, the trans crowd, is definitely a minority, huge minority. I mean, it's so small, like you said. But the principle is one of the grandest. It's one of the biggest. If you can eliminate truth, if you can eliminate something as obvious as you are a man and you are a woman, if you can eliminate that from the minds of people and make everything relative, I think that's why they are clinging to this so much. It's not really to cater to this small community of people. It's the bigger.
Well, you're just proving what I was saying, though. I said it's proof there's an agenda. That's what I'm saying. It's proof there's a spiritual thing, that it's not about transgenders. Right. This is about something way bigger than transgenders. It's something else. It's actually about something else. And to me, I'm just saying the transgender issue proves it. That they don't even really care about the transgender something. Right. It's something else going on. And it's really, like Trina said, it's what the Bible says. That they would call bitter sweet and sweet bitter, and that they would call darkness light and light darkness. And the whole meaning of that verse is really that they would destroy the concept of truth, the reality of truth. You know, even I put a survey on Facebook the other day, and I knew it was going to stir a little bit of controversy, but I wasn't trying to be controversial. But I asked, what is God's most important attribute? Love, mercy, goodness, or truth? And the majority of the people said love, and I understand why they said that, but truth is actually the only real answer you can come to there, because if it's not love and truth, if it's not true love and love and truth, then it's not love. If it's not true mercy, it's not mercy. Right. If it's not true goodness, it's not goodness. And they'd quote scriptures about love, and I appreciate that, but they would never have quoted it if it was in the Quran.
That's right.
They only quoted it from the Bible because they believe the Bible is true. First and foremost, the truth is what matters. It's the I have said this before. I taught an apologetics class one time over a summer about 3 years ago, which means defending the faith. That's what apologetics really means. It's a Greek word, comes out of the New Testament. And I said truth is the fundamental fabric of reality. Truth is the most important attribute of God, and you can get that out of the Bible. You can see it, that all of his attributes are founded in his truth, that his word is founded on the fact that he's his truth, all of it. And so everything you're going to get from the word has to be founded in the fact that it's true. And he is a God of truth and all the things that it says. But truth is the fundamental fabric of reality. If you take truth away, then you do have your own reality, Alan.
Yep.
And I have my own reality. And in my reality, I'm sitting here doing a podcast with you. But if truth doesn't actually exist, well, in your reality, I might not be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
And who could say? Who could say? If truth doesn't exist, well, my reality might be, well, God's most important thing is love. And yours might be mercy. And we'd both be right because truth doesn't exist. But because truth does exist, we know that truth is the most important thing.
All right, so I got a question for both of you. All right, just like in any agenda, they push it and push it and push it. And when there's not enough people taking bites of it, I'll say, it goes away. Or it becomes a very small voice in the background. Do you think if this does not take off, is it going to go away?
My answer is absolutely not. Because I was going to say this earlier and I kind of drifted away from it. That's the thing that drives me insane about this stuff. Is these 5 transgender people in America, or however many there is, they won't stop until the acid that they're selling has destroyed everything. They won't stop. Okay, let me remind you something. The Homo people.
Yep.
they didn't stop at just being accepted societally. They didn't stop at having marriage rights. Now it's to adopt children. They want it all. They want it all. And it was like you could give them, it's like literally give an inch, they'll take a mile kind of a thing. I'm saying if we actually rewound the clock and if we remember, there was a homo movement that swept this country starting 20 years ago.
Yep.
Okay, the transgender thing is what's sweeping now. But 20 years ago, it was homo stuff. Nobody even heard of transgender 20 years ago. I wouldn't have even known what the word meant.
Nope.
Okay, but 20 years ago, it was homosexual people fighting for the right to marry. But once they got that, was they done? Not even close to being done. No, they want, at the end of the day, what they want is for you to say there's no difference between you and me. Mm-hmm. They want complete and total, they want the whole society to accept their way as just as normal could be. There ain't nothing wrong with it. You're just, you're just as qualified, just as this, just as that, as everything. That's what they wanted. It wouldn't stop till they got that. And honestly, they got that. They got that right now. In fact, they got
they have preferential
They're preferential. Yeah, they're favorites. They get favoritism now. If the law does respect persons, it's the homo people. They get preferential treatment. And here's the thing, though. The transgender thing, that movement is going to take about 10 to 15 years to fully unfold, and it'll happen the same way for them.
Okay, so here's this. Over the last 2 years, 18 states have passed laws preventing transgender athletes or biological boys and men from being on sport teams for females. Is that number going to go up, or is it going to start reversing and go down?
It'll go up, and then it'll go down almost completely, because at one time, 50 states, it was illegal to have homosexual marriage. 50 states.
You think Alabama will stand firm on this one?
I think Alabama will probably. In fact, what I was going to say is, in reality, what I think will end up happening is there'll be our country's fractured already. We're going to end up having regional distributions of certain things, regional laws, perhaps even. I don't know, but it's happening already.
Yep.
But no, ultimately, either they'll have their way in all 50 states, or I'll tell you this much. Our lives will forever be what they have been for the last 3 years. Continuous protests, continuous movements like BLM, continuous stuff like Antifa, continuous riots in the streets. Either they'll get it in all 50 states, or there will never be peace of any sort, not even for like a year or two. It won't happen. Mm-hmm. And so either our country is going to have to decide to do what Russia did, or what some other countries did and say, no, all of that junk is illegal, punishable by prison time, and snuff it out, or just accept it, one or the other. We can't stand, as a nation, we can't stand in some middle ground. The middle ground will destroy us all. We can't say relative truth in some areas, absolute. It just ain't going to work.
They say united we stand, divided we fall. And we're in a free fall.
That's what I'm saying. We've either got to be united, that transgenders have the same rights, same treatment, same everything as all of us, or we have to be united that it's not even a real thing and we're foolish for ever even entertaining the idea. But halfway in between, some states going this route, some states going that route. It ain't going to work. Just like right now with abortion stuff. In 1975, abortion was illegal in 50 states. And then it became legal in like 30 states. And then it became legal in almost all the states. And now it's illegal, federally speaking, but every state gets to choose. Mm-hmm. And what you're ending up seeing happening now is a bunch of interstate civil war type stuff brewing over this, because people are going from one state to the other. Oh, because this state allows, it's division. Mm-hmm. It's another level of American division that we haven't seen. It's unprecedented. Honestly, our country's on the precipice of like not just civil wars, but like culture wars, religious wars, ethnic wars, all kinds of wars. It won't be North versus South. It'll be Elm Street versus Peachtree Street versus Apple Tree Street versus whatever street. It'll be that level of division.
Yeah, I've had that conversation before. If an actual official civil war ever broke out here again, it's not going to be North versus South. It could go a couple different ways.
Well, it's going to be certain parties. Like
that's exactly
you may have a community that has divided into 5 factions because one's BLM, one's Antifa, one's conservative Republicans or whatever. Yep. One's what they would consider radical Christians. It couldn't be anything at all. But
because we're technically in a civil war, if you think about it now.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not out there fighting on battlefields necessarily like they did in the Civil War, but modern day, the fight is on media, is on social media, or what you know.
Yeah. Well, I agree. We've been going right at almost exactly an hour. Katrina, close us out with some deep thoughts by Katrina Brown.
He says that sarcastically.
No, I mean it. You've had to be silenced for so long.
No, I'm actually
shut it down.
Do you have something else you're wanting to say? You're eyeing something over there.
You can go ahead and what I'm going to say, I'll say this real quick before she closes out. The answer that they're coming up with, which is ridiculous because of the way we believe. But they're wanting to, if you become trans after male puberty, you cannot compete in sports.
So before puberty, you can.
Yes. But as a male, it doesn't matter. You're going to go through puberty after that point anyways.
So the reason they're making this rule is to keep these last-minute switcher people from being able to just do it to gain advantage. But what they're accepting in the first place is already the thing that's destroying them.
Yes.
Yes. That's back to what I was saying. It's stupid to me to accept any of it at all. Because it won't stand. It will not stand. Like what I'm saying is to say, well, we're doing this, we're making these rules for the scholarship issue, but we're not anti-transgender. We're making these rules that you can't switch in high school because you've already gone through puberty, but we're not anti-transgender. They're doing all this to save face politically, and what they're really doing is just literally digging a hole that they're going to fall in 10 years.
In 5 years, none of this stuff we talked about is even going to matter anymore.
It won't.
It's all going to change. It's going to change according to what...
I tell you what it's going to change. It's going to be worse.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, they're saying right now the puberty thing and the trying to come up with a different division for them and all that stuff, that will change. None of this stuff we're talking about is even going to stay the same.
No, it's not. As far as their rules and regulations and all that, you're right. But what I'm saying is 10, 15 years, if we're all still here doing this podcast, we won't even be talking about transgenders anymore. That'll just be like the Homo thing is. Now that's old news.
That's old news. Yeah, it's going to be something different. And I can't even imagine what we're going to be.
I can tell you what it's going to be if I could bet the farm on it, I know what it's going to be, but I don't even want to talk about it right now. But it'll be worse than that.
Nothing is going to be better. We're in a downward spiral.
When you tear down the identity, the created in God's image, the sanctity of life, the sanctity of human life, the sanctity of genders, the sanctity of marriage, when you tear all that down, guess what else goes with it? The sanctity of children.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's gone. It's gone. And so the stuff that'll happen in the future, because this is the nature of evil, Alan, it attacks everything that's beautiful and pure in this world. Mm-hmm. It'll attack marriage. It'll attack the true identity of humankind, that we're created in God's image, and that's a holy thing. That's an amazing thing, and it's like Satan trying to deface God by making humanity look like such fools. But as it progresses, one of the last things it'll ever be able to get to, but it will, is the purity of children. Mm-hmm. And once it hits that, it'll try and devour it like you ain't ever seen. It's already happening. It's all been developing that way, already for those that have eyes to see. But we'll save that for a different episode. I just feel bad because we've been talking for an hour, and your wife had to go out there and babysit the kids, basically, because, we needed her to. But I appreciate the work you done on this, and we don't have to, we can talk about it again next week and bring Katrina in here. I just know that it's been about long enough.
Well, yeah, and a lot of this stuff, as many articles as I had to read to do this, and it all basically is saying the same thing at this point in time. There's not enough you've got an equal amount of opposition as you do support. And right now, it's just, if you believe like we believe, then none of it even matters anyways.
You've said that twice, but I just want to say something about that. I agree and I disagree a little bit. I completely agree. But when you say, if you believe like we believe, all that really means is if you believe that there's truth. You don't even have to be Christian.
No.
Just believe there's truth. That's it. Did you believe that there's absolute truth? If you believe there's absolute truth, you'll end up standing with me. There's no doubt in my mind. You don't even an Islamic person. You know what I'm saying? It's not even, you don't even have to be Christian to see what we're saying is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In fact, when we bring the Christianity of our worldview into it, it goes way further than just accepting truth. Now we're accepting the fact that there's an evil agenda behind all this kind of stuff. But to believe like I believe on this, if you just at least accept truth, my friend, you'll see this the same way I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is just crazy that you'd ever even be in that position to have to look at a person and say, do you believe in truth? It's like, that doesn't even make sense that question would ever even come out of someone's mouth, and yet it has to come out of our mouth. But go ahead. You was closing us down there. I agree with you, what you were saying. I just wanted to point out, you're not actually saying, if you're Christian like we're Christian, right? Because you don't even have to be Christian to see the
that's what I'm
foolishness.
saying. I mean, it's really what you believe, though. I mean, we believe what the Bible says is truth, but let's say the person out there doesn't believe what the Bible says is truth, but they know that this is wrong. Even overlook the aspect, I know this is a Christian podcast, overlook the aspect of the Bible. Sports has been about fairness. That's why they punish you for doping. We've already went over that. They punish you for everything that you do for fairness, because if I'm going out there and I'm hitting home run every time I'm up, I'm gone to baseball. I've covered a lot of sports today. If I go out there and I'm hitting a home run every single time, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to pull me off that field and I'm going to take a drug test.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, are they doing that every time a trans person wins a championship? Okay. You know?
Yeah.
But see, regardless, it's not fair. I was very, very good at track and field. That was my sport when I was in school. I went to state championships. I went to national championships. I was a very good runner. You wouldn't know it by looking at me now. I'm fat, I'm out of shape, and I can't breathe. But back then, before I had asthma,
don't get out of breath on us now.
I know. Before I had asthma, I was a very good runner. I was top in my school and in the state. I'm not going to mention what state because I don't like telling people where I'm from. But in the state that I lived in, I was in the top 10 runners in my age range. Mm-hmm. I worked extremely hard. If you've ever had to tie a parachute to you and run 400 yards against the wind, that is not easy.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it now. I wouldn't make it 10 yards. But back then, I trained. I worked very hard for my sport. Mm-hmm. That's what these people are doing. These swimmers, that Riley girl, I didn't say this, but she's been swimming since she was 8 years old. She started swimming.
Yeah. She
started competing at 10 years old. She made it to college because she was I think it was a 10-time state champion swimmer in high school. She's worked her entire life in that sport. It is not fair for someone to call themselves another gender and start winning out.
Yeah.
In a sport that in their gender, in their age range, they weren't worth a hill of beans. Mm-hmm. So if you just overlook the aspect of the Bible, it's not fair.
Mm. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Even eliminating the Bible, it's not fair, and that's actually what I meant. Is truth exists outside of the Word of God. I'm not even saying you have to believe the Word of God is true. I'm just saying that you have to believe truth is true. That's all you got to believe. And if you believe that, you can't go along with this stuff. You can't do it because it's true that sports are supposed to be fair. That's true. If that's true, then it's unfair for him to do that. Done. You see what I'm saying? Once you accept truth as being an absolute thing, all the other arguments fall by the wayside. But yes, you're right. It's an injustice to her. The NCAA owes her an apology.
Yeah. Now, she may have it now, but the one interview I watched, she still hadn't even received her trophy yet for that race.
Yeah, somebody that's worked her whole life like that, been swimming since they were 8, and they fell victim to some stupid transgender movement thing. All right, Katrina, close us out.
No, you guys did great.
No, close us out.
What do you want me
We're
to
going
say?
to be gender equal here.
Oh my goodness. No, you guys did great. That was wonderful. I don't know what to say.
All right, thank you.